If you guys haven't heard by now, yeah, this is the Nick Frazier podcast, and you're getting the best genuine content out there. Right, fellas?
Sure. Agreed.
And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nick Frazier podcast. I'm your host, Nick Frazier, alongside reoccurring guest, Zach Crutcher. Zach, how we doing?
Doing good, man. Hey, it's that good time of year. We got everything going. We got college football, NFL, hockey. We got NBA starting up this week. It's getting a little chilly out there. It's my favorite time of the year. How you doing?
Man, I'm good. You mentioned chilly. Yeah, it's getting a little too chilly for me, honestly. I'm already to the point where I'm like, you know what? We kind of have to stop with the cold weather already. I'm ready to move down to Florida. That's what I'm feeling right now.
Right. Ready to migrate.
Yeah, honestly. But, we have had a bit of a week in college football, in NFL. Titans had a bye week last week, but that doesn't matter because there was still a lot of Titans news. There was a lot of Vols news. I think that's the cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows that big news of, number 3 in the nation now. And unfortunately for a fellow Bama fan yourself, it didn't bode well for you this time. But yeah, it's just crazy. Like you said, we have hockey back and everything seems to be in full swing. All sports are in full swing. It's like nothing is bad anymore. We're having a good time.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. NFL's in full swing. College football, especially after that game we had Saturday. And, as a Bama fan, it hurts, but they outplayed us. They really, in the first quarter, they kicked our butt. They came out ready to play. We might have been intimidated by that crowd at Neyland. But there's something about college football when, Tennessee's are playing really well. The Texases are playing well. USC's back. It just all feels normal.
Yeah, it really does. And that's we can start there. We'll start with college football because I feel like that's more of a open wound, if that's a safe word to say around you. But
fair word.
The main thing that caught my eye when UT was playing Bama this week in Knoxville, one was just Nick Saban came out in a different defensive front. And I was a bit perplexed a little bit, but I understood it because normally, and you can probably attest this and agree that Bama is a run-first defense. Like, regardless of whatever, they're going to run their 4-3 defense and their heavy front and stop the run. Well, against spread offenses, you normally like to see a 4-2-5, and that's kind of what I started to shift towards as I was watching the game. I was like, wait a minute, Saban's coming out in a 4-2-5, and it doesn't bode well in my eyes. I'm like, this is just not Alabama. But, they had to do it because with the spread offense Tennessee was running, they're running with Jalen Hyatt, a motion across the line of scrimmage and running a weak pattern down the left side, and it's like an out route. It was beautiful. And then, when Tennessee keeps running those under routes, it's all the wide receivers that made that happen. Everybody made it happen, but mainly looking at it back to the film, the wide receivers and the tight ends, when they would run their routes, they would run it extra a little bit, make a jab step out or right or left, something like that, and just stop on a dime. And that would open up so much room in that little linebacker spot right there where they had that cloud coverage. Because, a lot of people, when they don't realize this, I don't know if I have it on me. I do have it on me. I have myself a trusty old clipboard.
Uh-oh.
And,
yeah. Coach him up, Frazier.
We're just going to coach him up real quick. So, yeah, let me just write this out. Let's see. All right. This is Tennessee's offense. All right. This is going to be backwards, but oh well. You got Hooker. You got either small or right here. And then this is just out of their little small set they had. They had a tight end right here off the line a little bit, and they ran a little twins pattern on the other side near the boundary, okay? Near the boundary. Now, when I say that, let me just rephrase this a little bit. I'm talking about the boundary right now. With the boundary, Tennessee and Heupel, they run that fast-paced offense. They loved. I'm pretty sure Heupel was salivating on the sideline when he saw this. They ran a mesh route, and you'd have one guy go over the top, which was normally Hyatt, and that was on the inside. So Hyatt would run that little out and up, and then you had this mesh route. Let me just dabble it here. Would go up probably 10 yards and run an in route. So boom, that's kind of what it looked like a little bit on the outside there. It's kind of hard to explain, but Hyatt's right here. He runs that little mesh to the outside. And this is where the DBs got confused in that point right there. And Hyatt open all day, every day, top of there, all the way to the end zone. And so this guy right here is a decoy, essentially, or the second option. And you see that a lot in this 4-2-5. You see it a lot. And that's what kind of got me is that when Heupel exposed that in Saban's 4-2-5 defense, that's where I was like, that Alabama's in trouble now. They're way out of their comfort zone. And, getting prepared for this podcast and watching a little film, I went back and watched the Ohio State versus Bama game a few years back. And that's kind of when I saw this, like, Saban coming out in this 4-2-5. And that's what made me think, like, wow, maybe this is what Tennessee was trying to do all along. And, like, now that Tennessee only has Georgia to go up against, well, I don't want to say that. I want to just –
Kentucky's creeping up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I probably should have said, is that you have to watch out for Kentucky because, the big storyline there is just with the quarterback, Will Levis and stuff, but their defense has kept them in football games. When he was out for South Carolina, the defense was holding on by a thread. I mean, by a thread. And now with him back, it just brings a balance back in Kentucky. So that's something you have to watch out with Kentucky is, are they going to be able to spread the ball out against Tennessee, or is Tennessee going to be able to spread the ball out against them? And then, the next competition for the Vols would be Georgia. And we all know the disciples of Nick Saban, and it's Kirby Smart. He's one of those defensive gurus, if I can say so, that he learned the best from Nick Saban. So I think that's going to be something you have to put into perspective is with, I'm going to say it this way. Georgia has really good film on Tennessee now because Kirby Smart knows exactly probably for the most part, what Saban was trying to do against Tennessee. So now with that film, I mean, that's just a good recipe for Georgia to be fully prepared. Would you say?
I'd agree with that. I also think personnel-wise, all the way around, I think Georgia's defense right now is in a much better place than Alabama's. Alabama's defense has been struggling the entire year. I mean, if Ewers for Texas in week 2 would have played that whole game, Bama probably wouldn't be undefeated going into that game. Arkansas gave them fits. A&M last week was able, even with Max Johnson, was able to move down the field with them. Yeah. It's not the same dominant Alabama defense as years past. They still got some dudes, that pass rush, Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, but when they're not able to get to the quarterback, and I think Tennessee did a good job too of setting it up with some quick passes. It felt like over the middle was wide open the entire game, like you said. And Tennessee does a good job with their spacing, getting everybody out wide, leaving, the corners and safeties on an island, the stack routes that they have to do those mesh routes. It felt like they were able to mismatch and get our safety covering Hyatt on all those deep bombs. They somehow got the matchup they wanted, and Pete Golding, Nick Saban weren't able to adjust to it. I think, like you said, Kirby Smart being able to see the tape, the fact that the game is in Athens is a whole different – say what you will about Tennessee. Florida game was at home. Bama was at home. They got to play Baton Rouge at 11 a.m. kickoff.
Yep.
They haven't experienced that road test that Athens is going to be in a couple of weeks. And like you said, we still got to get through Kentucky because now Tennessee is on the highest of highs. And they got UT Martin this week. Think they'll be good. That's a good little hangover game for them.
Exactly.
But then you got Kentucky, and they should take care of Kentucky, but you never know. Their offense, though, man, I don't know how you stop them. You look at that Georgia game. Can Georgia's offense, go back and forth with them? Can they throw the punches? Alabama has the offense that was caliber too. I mean, Bryce Young, if he didn't play, that would have been ugly. But Tennessee's defense ain't exactly the 85 Bears. So it'll be interesting to see. That Georgia game is going to be so fascinating.
Yeah.
How their defense attacks, how Georgia's offense attacks. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You made a good point in how is Georgia going to keep up with Tennessee. It's going to be more the fact since it's in Georgia. It's going to be the fact that Georgia's going to play their pace of football and Tennessee's going to have to adjust to them. And let me just bring up some previous matchups that we've had with Tennessee. It was at Pitt. They struggled. They went to overtime. Pitt, they ended up slowing down Tennessee's pace of the game because they ended up playing their pace of football. And when you're able to do that, and we saw that a little bit in the Alabama game. Alabama, probably around the second quarter, into the first quarter, started to slow down the pace of the game.
Yeah, they stick to their game plan. They were able to still run the ball. They were able to, take their time going down the field. They weren't pressured by the clock, and they were able to work their way back into the game.
And, there's a good point that you made earlier talking with, about the defense of Alabama. And it really kindled in a thought that came to mind from the game, actually. When Hendon Hooker threw his first interception, I was actually thrown off as in why Alabama didn't do this sooner. They came out with a dime package and normally you see this on a 3rd and long, a passing play. It was the dime package, normally a 3-2-6 or like a 4-1-6 type deal. And I'll put on the whiteboard. I like using this whiteboard, man.
Oh yeah.
I'm used to it. Let me just put this out there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Normally this is what you're going to see on a 3rd and long type deal. 2, 3, 4. So there's your 4, and then you have your 1 here, and then you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a 6. So normally what's going to happen here is you're going to have this little extra dime package here. You're going to have one. Oh man, I look terrible in this little video here. Let me turn this around. All right. So right here, you have the same set of what I came out earlier, that little small little boundary set here. You have man on man here. Then you have your little nickel back right here. He'll come down in this little slot area, either to crash the RPO or he's going to come out and he'll play zone coverage defense. And that's what Bama did. Bama realized it's a 3rd and long. He's definitely going to stay back in coverage. You have 2 safety high, and boom, you're going to have man on man here. And you have this linebacker who's just playing this cloud coverage in the open space. So in retrospect, if Tennessee wants to go, oh, let me just get smaller right and put him to the line here and do a check down, Toa'Toa's got that. He's got the check down. Right. So that's what you got covered there. Then you have this tight end here, or Jalen Hyatt, whoever it was. I believe Hyatt was in the slot here at the mesh. So, I mean, you're going to have everything covered for the most part. And when you rewatch that one play, Bama's already 2-3 hats on the ball for the interception. I'm not sure who number 2 is on the defense. That's not Kool-Aid McKinstry, right?
No, it's Helms.
That's right, Helms. He was the one to get the interception. So when you see that pressure from the 4 in the front here, Hooker was like, oh crap, I need to get rid of this thing. And plus, like, I need to make sure I get the first down. And this was at a pivotal point in the game where, oh shit, like we need to get a first down. We need to make sure we convert, because if you don't, then you're giving Bama the ball back with momentum, and they could possibly score and win the ball game.
Well, it was one of those games where, there was so little room for error, because you make one turnover, you make one mistake, the way they were going back and forth, that's going to cost you.
Yeah.
So I honestly thought when we covered that fumble on the miss handoff on the option, I thought, okay, we got him,
Yeah. And that was another thing I saw, that Bama came out in this little, I wouldn't say their dime set, but I believe it was a 4-2-5, like they've been playing all game.
Right.
And their little nickel linebacker cornerish, he'll come down in that slot, and it was an RPO that that Hendon Hooker was trying to like read the running back and just do a quick little dart pass right up the middle. He couldn't get it off because that outside nickel would just come right down and just shoot down the outside of the tackle, and nobody picked him up. And then that was your blown play. So, that's good film to look at if I'm Georgia. I mean, if you want to look at the blown plays and just see how you can find Tennessee's weakness, because that's the best way. If you watch film, you're going to look at the weaknesses, and then you're going to look at some strengths. And if you can beat them at their strengths, then you got a ball game. Then you got yourself, we might be in the win column here. I'm not trying to be no coach, Zach, but all I'm saying is people that watch the Nick Frazier podcast on YouTube, or, if they want to listen to it and they don't understand what I'm talking about, that's okay. I'm not no coach, but I played a little football and I understand a little bit. So if they have,
you've seen some ball, you've seen some stuff, you've been around.
Exactly. So if people have a little problem with it or a question, shoot me a DM on the Nick Frazier podcast Instagram. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm always here to learn. I believe everybody's here to learn. That's life,
Right.
So, but yeah, that's kind of what I saw in the Alabama-Tennessee game. It was a fun game to watch.
Oh, dude, it felt like you couldn't storybook it better, like literally, because that's, all the country wanted Tennessee to win. Everybody won. It's fun when the balls are back. That's just a fact. And to have it end a drought like that, to end it like that, you got a fluttering knuckleball kick that barely makes it through the uprights.
Exactly.
Like, you couldn't script it any better. It was a hell of a game. It was the most watched game, I think, since Burrow versus Tua 3 years ago. Like, it was for sure the game of the year. Yeah. I hope, and we'll talk about college football playoff and all that later, I really hope that this is a matchup again in the SEC championship, because it would be another shootout.
Now, here's my question. Let's kind of jump to conclusions a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's say Tennessee beats Georgia. Okay. Let's say Tennessee goes undefeated the rest of the way out. Mm-hmm. They have to beat Georgia to go to the SEC title game, probably more than likely to play Alabama. Okay.
More than Ole Miss. Watch out now.
I know, exactly. I'm not trying to jump the gun here, but let's just say Ole Miss loses to Alabama. Okay. So if Alabama, who's coming in as a one-loss team in the SEC title game, going up against undefeated Tennessee, If Tennessee loses that game, does that mean they still have a contention of being in the playoff, or what's the deal here?
I believe resume you would assume so, and we've seen it time and time again where the two SEC teams get in. You really got to look at the rest of what's going on in college football right now. I mean, Michigan and Ohio State, they're building up to an undefeated matchup more than likely. Both teams, whoever wins that game is going to the playoff, and then you can make the case could a one-loss Michigan or Ohio State. Now you're just doing resumes, picking the better resume. Pac-12's got a couple of undefeated teams right now. UCLA and Oregon got a game this week. We don't think much of the Pac-12 per se, but they're undefeated. It's something to consider. You've got in the Big 12, TCU's undefeated still, I believe. Clemson is just casually beating top 25 teams left and right, and Clemson's still Clemson. I mean, there's still a lot to shake up. I think national media right now, it's Vols. But when we get to November and you're looking at resumes, who knows?
Exactly, dude. You made a good point about the West Coast teams. Utah kind of falls under the radar there as a 2-loss team, but beating a number 7 USC at night, like that's
great game, by the way. If stayed up to watch a little Pac-12 after dark, that was a really fun game.
Yeah, Pac-12 after dark, indeed. I ended up falling asleep on the couch, and I woke up and I was like, Utah win versus USC. I'm like, wait, what? Are you serious? Right. What happened? By 1 point?
Yeah.
But, that also just throws a wrench into things. And last week on the Nick Frazier podcast, I didn't have a full episode come out, but I posted some stuff on my social media, and I had a little clip. I'm probably not going to play it because it's somewhere in the Rolodex of audio, but I did a predicted top 10 for this current week. I think I was around 60%, 50%. I had Georgia. This was if UT and Penn State won and Oklahoma State lost, I think. And it was Georgia at 1, Ohio State 2, Tennessee 3, Clemson 4, Alabama 5, Penn State 6, USC 7, Ole Miss 8, UCLA 9, and TCU 10. So I got a few of those in there right. I would say it was Tennessee at 3, and of course Penn State lost, so that would definitely push Alabama to 6.
Right.
And Michigan they went to 4 actually, and Clemson to 5. So there was a little bit of up and down numbers there, but for the most part, the key pieces in that little top 25 was, for the most part, right. I mean, the second one I made that if Alabama won was more accurate, just if, Tennessee, I had Tennessee in there to win. It was pretty damn spot on. I'm not going to lie.
There you go.
Just not going to lie. I think I got 3 of them wrong out of the top 10. So, hey, that's not too shabby. Yeah, we'll take it.
I have a hypothetical for you. We've talked about, if the Vols go undefeated and they lose the SEC championship game, what do we do if, say, the Vols lose in Athens?
Okay.
Well, possibility. Georgia goes on to face Alabama in the SEC championship. Alabama beats Georgia. So now you're looking at a 1-loss Alabama, a 1-loss Georgia, and a 1-loss Tennessee, where Bama lost to Tennessee, Tennessee lost to Georgia, Georgia lost to Alabama. What do you do then?
See, I talked about that with a couple of my buddies, and I mentioned it at work, and there was really no definitive answer. And personally, in my opinion, I think Tennessee gets a bid. I would not be surprised if I see, and this is going to be very, very hypothetical, I wouldn't be surprised if I see 3 SEC teams. I really wouldn't. I could easily.
The way it goes, I wouldn't either, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think if you go then, you look at strength of schedules, and if you go to that, I don't think it favors Georgia.
No. You have to look at their Missouri loss. Or not loss, but it seemed like a loss. But
they struggle with Missouri. They struggle with Kent State. Now, they have a good win over Oregon, but at the time we thought Oregon wasn't what they are now. But, I mean, that's I don't know. It would be chaos.
Yeah. No, I agree. If it does come down to that, I would easily say, and just because Tennessee beat Alabama, if they don't have – I mean, it would have to be Ohio State if they were to win out. Ohio State 1. This is going to sound crazy. Georgia at 2, Tennessee at 3, and Bama at 4.
Which would be insane. You might as well move that thing to Nissan Stadium and the Georgia Dome for the playoff.
Yeah. The fact that people are going to see Georgia-Tennessee matchup is what everybody really wanted to see in an SEC title game. But unfortunately, you can't. That's where we look at things of man, maybe this 2-3 matchup of Georgia-Tennessee in the Final Four could be the possibility.
And it would be insane.
Exactly. Very insane.
We got a long way to go. We got some games now to sort out. Obviously, the big one in Athens in a couple of weeks. it's just, like I said, having a new team in the range with Tennessee, where it's not just Ohio State and Bama and Georgia and Clemson. You got a new team in there that, America's starting to fall in love with.
Yeah. And that's that. Let's elaborate a little bit more on other teams beside the SEC for this. Mm-hmm. And we'll make it brief in a little bit. But going into the top 4 here, say that hypothetical does happen, but then you have to look at the ACC. If Clemson wins out, they definitely have to be the number 4.
100%.
And then you got to drop either Bama or Tennessee. I think that might be maybe maybe Georgia. Like, see, this is where it gets really iffy because you have one team beat one another. Like, very difficult. I don't know.
I mean, I think obviously it depends on how close that Michigan-Ohio State game is too. I think Michigan's just quietly taking care of business this year, and they've been really good. Ohio State, kind of, they're taking care of business. It hasn't necessarily been the sexiest, but,
right.
Taking care of business, and they're building up to when they play Michigan. So if one of them gets in, if it's close, you have that argument. I don't know that much about Oregon, UCLA, to be honest with you, but they seem like that could, even if they win the Pac-12, that could be like the last team out sort of scenario.
Yeah. I could easily see UCLA finishing at like a 6 or a 5.
Yeah.
If they were to win out.
That's a sneaky game this week. Chip Kelly going back to Eugene, undefeated, be a lot of fun.
I agree. And, looking at Ole Miss as well. And so I don't want to keep jumping around playing leapfrog, but I do have to ask you about the ACC.
Yeah.
Is Syracuse going to beat, Clemson? Are they going to take down the top dog this week? Because that's just teasing it for the NFP picks. That's my hot pick. That is my hot pick of the week. I think Syracuse is going to win outright.
I'm on the whole other side. One of my picks was on Clemson, so we're going to have to discuss this a little bit.
Okay.
Granted, I looked at the slate this week. The slate for me is tough pickings this week. I don't know. 13.5 also might not be exactly where I go, but Clemson they won on the road at Wake Forest. That was a big top 25 game. They won against NC State when they had their quarterback. That was, another win that they had. They were only 3-point favorites on the road at Florida State last week, and they really took care of them majority of the game. They're not the same sexy Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Clemson Tigers of the past, but they're still winning. They're still getting it done. Syracuse, they won against NC State. I believe it was still with NC State's backup quarterback. You correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct.
I'm just going to go with trust the powerhouse in this one. I'm going to trust Clemson. They've been there before. They've lived up to these big games. It's in Death Valley. I'm taking Clemson.
Okay. All right. Well, that's our little teaser for the NFP picks later in the.
We'll debate more later, but
exactly. We'll debate a little bit more later, but yeah, I feel like that's majority of what we can cover right now for college football. We will get into the second half of the podcast after this quick break. But before we get to the break, let me tell you about my friends over at SeatGeek. Yes, SeatGeek is a ticket company app that has sporting events, concerts, whatever else is on their website to be in North America to go to with a ticket. You can go to SeatGeek.com and check it out. They have a ticket scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best ticket value. You could easily go on there and just find and peruse any ideas that you might want to go to some sort of event. Tennessee's a hot team right now. Maybe you could catch them in Nashville for the rivalry week, at the last weekend of the season. That ticket's roughly $140, $150. It's going up, by the way. I checked it this morning. It was like around $158, $170. And then, so if you go on SeatGeek.com, use my code NFPOD, NFPOD, that gets you $20 off your purchase. Yes, $20. So go enjoy a nice night in the town, courtesy of the Nick Frazier podcast. And, enjoy it. Go ahead, Zach.
I'm going to use that code because now one of my best buds is an Ole Miss fan, and he's really he's getting really confident about November 12th in Oxford, Mississippi, and he wants to make the trip, which I love the Grove. The Grove's fantastic, but he wants that Bama Ole Miss game. He wants to be there in person for it. Tickets there pretty pricey, but I'm going to use that discount and give me a little sale on them tickets.
Exactly. Why not use something that's free money,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you very much for the first half of the podcast. We'll catch you after this quick break. Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of the Nick Frazier podcast. I'm back here with Zach Crutcher, and we are going to be talking a little bit about the Titans. And Titans were on a bye week this past week, but doesn't mean there was, any news from the Titans. Zach, like Vrabel had a little bit of some news with some referees and some
little emails going out.
Yeah, a little bit of emails. And then you have this crazy news about the Titans' new stadium. I had a hunch that it was going to be finalized eventually sometime this year in 2022. And yeah, they finally came to an agreement. What are your thoughts on that initially?
It's exciting, man. I mean, I've been going to games with my family's been season ticket holders since the beginning. I've been going to games for 15 years now. I mean, I'm excited. It's going to be really weird in a couple of years once you leave Nissan and move into the new digs. But I mean, it's a win for everybody. I mean, Nashville, it sounds like it's not spending a ton of money on it. It's going to bring those events that we have been so desperately coveting. The Super Bowls, the playoff national championships. Well, could the SEC championship move to Nashville? That's a topic. Just finally having a stadium that is up to date with everyone else. You know, you see every year, you know, whether it's Atlanta, LA, Dallas, all these stadiums are just insane, top of the top. And now we get one of our own. It's really exciting for the fan base and for the city.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, one thing that really stuck out to me when reading about it is that they're going to have the same builders that are going to be on the Allegiant Stadium over there in the Vegas. They made the Vegas Stadium. So, like,
they said the roof's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing to know, honestly, because you know everybody. You know, I'm a fan of this, and I was through the grapevine of listening elsewhere and reading. The retractable roof is just not a good look. I wouldn't say a good look. It just wouldn't be as useful as just having a dome, from what I've heard and seen.
Well, and from the press conference, they said yesterday it would have cost $250 million more. Which, if you're still going to do, which they are, the side panels, the glass doors, if you're still going to have that, I think it'll end up being okay.
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys. I would prefer football to be played outside in the elements, so I get that. But in the end, if you want to get these big events, if you want to get the winter concerts, all that, just have it indoors, make it easy, make it simple.
Yeah. And now let me ask you. I think you might know this more than I do, but in Arizona, that's not a retractable roof, right?
I don't believe so.
Because I have seen on documentaries in previous years, they actually get a forklift and all the natural grass is in squares, and they get on a forklift and get it outside to actually get sunlight.
Right.
Man, if the Titans could do that, man.
That was my one little negative. Is it sucks that it's going to be turf because with all the injuries that have come with, we talk about the Lucas Oil turf and the MetLife turf and all the injuries that it causes. I was really hoping for that. I guess with Arizona, it's a bit different weather-wise where they can take care of it outside, every day of the year. But for me, it was the turf that I'm like, I guess I'll get over it. I've heard parking now is going to be, a little bit more difficult, especially during the construction. They're taking the season ticket member lot and they're turning it into the stadium. So for those 3-4 years, it's going to be a shit show trying to get down there.
Yeah. And, that's one thing about Nashville is that it keeps growing and growing. And I've always said this since I was a little kid and I kept seeing giant sky rises keep going up in the Nashville skyline. It's the fact that this city's growing too fast for its capacity.
Mm-hmm. Having that Atlanta boom where.
Yeah. I don't understand it. It's great. Economically, it's great for the city, but you have to just sit back and relax and be like, hey man, let's realize something. We need to make sure this is okay for, the average Joe person to go to a game. Cause that's all it's about is fan experience.
I agree with that.
If your fan experience is not great, why the hell should I go downtown and enjoy a game? For example, when I went to a Preds game one time, and I believe it was, the 2017 run where they went to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Mm-hmm. The atmosphere down there on Broadway was awesome. I remember I got to go to a playoff game. That was awesome. If the Titans are trying to make that type of cohesive fan base, I'm all for it. But if it's going to be a big issue of parking and trying to figure out how the average Joe fan is going to enjoy their time, I'm not sold. I'm not going to buy
that. You and I are both a couple of average Joes here, but are they going to force us out? That's the big thing with the new stadiums tickets are super, super expensive, especially with, Nashville being the tourist trap that it is. It's going to draw more opposing fans to come in.
Yeah.
And you talk about wanting to keep the fan base and keep it growing, which the fan base is in a much better spot than it was a few years ago.
I agree. And that's
years all, but still, fans aren't coming in the droves that they're coming, in 2015, 2016, 2017.
Yes, took the words right out of my mouth there, Zach, because you look at it and you just think ticket prices are only going to go up. With what's going on right now with the NFL, you look around the league. Last year, the Titans' average ticket price, and don't quote me on this, but from my recollection of looking on my phone at third-party ticket prices, they're around 150 in the nosebleeds, 200 probably at the very back of the bottom bowl. Now, average ticket price going up in the nosebleeds is like near 250.
Yeah, and that's not
175 to.
And the only way you can get a deal on them is if they get you for season tickets, which that's just
and that's still a hefty price tag.
Oh yeah,
because you have people that have been season ticket holders for the longest time. They're going to get the deal. Then you got people that have been season ticket holders since like probably 2010. And when you've been a season ticket holder that long, they're going to catch you with half the price. Then on top of that, they're going to be like, well, if I'm a season ticket holder, I'd be more than willing to sell 3 or 4 games a year, make my money on my season tickets, and then some, buy my season tickets for next year, maybe do the same thing, rinse and repeat. Because you had all these people coming from out of town, like you're saying, some people that are actually moving to Nashville, and they'll pay whatever third-party ticket price just to go to the game because they've never seen it before.
I mean, there's a certain fan bases. It'll be December when Dallas comes to town. That's when the PSL holders get their money back for the year.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued too. They said PSL holders now, like I said, my family's had them for 20 years. They're PSL holders. You're getting not first priority, I think, for the new PSLs. Like, I think they get a credit from what they already paid, but the cost that my family did when it was 2000, I believe the PSLs cost $750. There is no chance if that was 20 years ago and you're giving them that credit, they're going to be paying a crap ton to secure their PSL. And this is per seat, and they've got like 8 to 10 seats. Wow. It's going to be.
You're joking.
I wish I wasn't.
Wow. That is insane.
Mm-hmm. And that's PSL is just the rights that this is your seat. You still have to pay the season tickets every year on top. The PSL is a one-time payment.
Holy cow.
Sure that these are your seats for as long as you pay the season ticket member prices.
Wow. And that's every season.
The PSL is one time.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying the price though. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, that's for sure gone up over time. It was $799.
Holy cow. Yeah, dude.
That's how they got part of the funding to pay for Nissan, and that's part of what they're doing the funding for whatever this stadium is going to be called. So.
Man, it's crazy, man. Times have definitely changed. This is not the old Nashville.
No.
We're definitely living in a
country town city. It's got its good and its bad. I'm really, start saving up now for when that Super Bowl comes in 10 years because that's,
that's going to be the main ticket.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also, I believe from what I saw, capacity is only going to be 55 to 60,000. So
that was the next thing I was about to bring up is normally the bare minimum for a Super Bowl has to be 70,000 seats. But apparently this has the amenities to do so.
Well, and I think given, the draft in years past, City of Nashville and the NFL are on good terms. I'm pretty sure that they'd let that slide. And heck, they can charge more money for tickets now because it's less capacity.
Which means when you charge, more for tickets and less capacity, just keep bumping up that price. Looking at, in LA when they had the Super Bowl there, last year, it was like roughly $1,400 for a nosebleed ticket. I'm like, dude, imagine if it comes to Nashville with less capacity of tickets. That's only going to bump the nosebleed price to probably like $2,300, $3,000, man. Like that's.
You can use in context too on that one though. It all depends on matchup too for Super Bowl. Like that was Rams are in LA. They're playing in LA. They're playing a team that's trying to win their first Super Bowl. Like that's one of those you just never know until you get towards the week of.
Yeah.
But also it being in LA for the first time, all the stars coming out, all the, Nashville's great. Nashville's not LA as far as popularity. So that, but that's a ways away. That's probably 5, 6, 7 years away before we even get into it.
Yeah.
But it should be an exciting time because again, it's something we've needed. Nissan has been slowly deteriorating and slowly more problems are, persisting. So it'll be nice to have a new digs, but it's just the price that comes with it is a bit much.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. It's just a bit much for me. I enjoy going to sporting events, but when I can't afford them by myself, that's when I have to draw the line and be like, hey, the couch is always a good seat, to watch a game.
Nothing wrong with some NFL red zone and some pizza and
I don't know, some wings.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to find a way to make it affordable and make it the experience worth it. Is it gonna be the experience where it's for tourists to come in? Is it gonna be the experience for families? What's that gonna be?
Yeah.
That's another question that they've got to figure out. I'll give Atlanta credit. Atlanta, they're like, we're going to make concession prices cheap. We're going to have the nicest ushers, nicest everything. We'll give you state-of-the-art everything. We're going to make this as enjoyable as possible for you.
Yep.
I've seen other new stadiums that's not the case. Here's hoping Nye Hill and the team there will get it figured out and make it the best possible experience for the fans.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
That's the key.
Yeah, I don't know. What were you about to say? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying make sure that it's the best for Titans fans, not visitors, not any of that. Make sure that it's the best experience for the fans that are the reason you're having this new stadium.
Exactly. Well, enough about the new stadium. Let's get into actual nitty-gritty of the Tennessee Titans. They came off a bye week, but also there were a little bit of some rumors, some murmurs about Odell. He said he would take a big deficit of a pay cut to go to play for any team, really. I wasn't told this, but I read about it. I believe it was Jeremy Fowler that put this out. There were 5 teams that were in contention to look at Odell Beckham. And at number 5 on that list was the two-tone blue Tennessee Titans. You think Odell has a possibility of coming to Nashville?
I'm so twisted on this, man. I'm so just because with our luck at this position, we've been here before. Julio, we've been here before. The Andre Johnson back in the day. The Golden Tate, go back old school. My poor 10-year-old self got a Randy Moss Titans jersey. Like I've fallen for this trap too many times. Yeah. But then you look at the receiver depth and it's like, it's what we need, especially now with Burks on IR.
Yep. I feel like it would take a lot of pressure off of Kyle Phillips.
Oh, 100%. Because, this is, and we'll get into this week's game in a little bit, but, it's now time for him to – that receiving core is Woods, NWI, Kyle Phillips, and then there's that drop for Hollister and Dez. It's time for those wideouts to step up, and hopefully he's healthy now and the shoulder's not bothering him because now he's going to have to step up.
Exactly. So, that with that being said, do you like the idea of Odell coming to Nashville? And let's just put it into perspective. If we get the Odell Beckham from the Rams, their Super Bowl season, is that what everybody expects to come into Nashville? Or are we going to see a more Cleveland Brown type Odell Beckham? What's your perspective on that?
I would think because he would immediately – I think they'd let Woods be the wide receiver 1.
Okay.
And then they'd have Beckham be the wide receiver 2. I think, it's what we need. It's for sure what we need. So I think it wouldn't hurt. I think you have to deal with the media and all the stuff that'll come with it. And, Twitter will be going in a storm if he doesn't get enough targets, which this offense is not a target-driven offense. The only person that gets their targets is Derrick Henry.
True.
Everybody else, it's, you're going to split with Woods, you're going to split with NWI, you're going to split with Jeff Swain. But right now, it's all hands on deck. The Josh Gordon project didn't work out. I'd be desperate at every chance you can get to get a receiver.
Yeah, no, I agree.
There was talks to DJ Moore last week, which I don't know if I necessarily trade assets for. But if you got a free agent sitting right there, do what you got to do to lock him up.
Yeah, I agree. And, the Titans are in such a very tight position because if they utilize some of their draft picks to get one of these, I guess, tradable market players, the future, it's like basically saying, oh, no, we're here to win this year, even though we have a partially depleted roster. That's where I kind of draw the line. Are the Titans going to sell out for a Super Bowl anytime soon? That's kind of where I'm getting at. Are they going to?
I don't know if this year is the year.
Right.
Just because they've been winning. Since we last recorded, they're 3-0.
Right.
But it hasn't been the prettiest, and the level of competition hasn't necessarily been the best.
Yep.
I think even if you spent money on one big receiver, a DJ Moore and Odell Beckham isn't going to put this team in the Super Bowl. It might help them win the division, but it's not going to help them come when you play the Chiefs or you play the Bills in January.
Yeah, no, I agree. The one thing I saw about the Odell situation when I was reading about it, it said on Jeremy Fowler's, I guess, article. The Titans had roughly $3.7 to $3.9 million in salary cap opening if they wanted to sign Odell. And I believe Odell, when he signed with the Rams, some of it was in crypto, but some of it wasn't, whatever you want to look at it as. But he signed for a $4.25 million deal. That's including incentives. So they said he'd take half of that. So that's in the price range for a 1-year deal with the Titans, but I don't know.
But again, if it's not even a 1-year deal, it's a 10, 12 game deal. Like, you're doing that, and I know you want to win, but you're building all of this to he'll be gone after this year and he'll be on another, like, there's no guarantee there.
Exactly. So I don't know if it's more of a gimmick or if it's more of a, maybe this is an investment. You never know. But I think if there's any landing spot for Odell, it's going to be Green Bay. That's the only logical spot for me.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he's back with the Rams.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think they're just
their receiving core after Kupp right now. It's not good.
Yeah, no, it's crazy because Kupp's getting about 70 plus yards per game, and like last game they won, but he got no touchdown, and like that's what's going to be their moneymaker is Kupp to get a touchdown almost every other game.
The Allen Robinson project, which it's crazy to think about, they swapped out Woods for Allen Robinson.
That still blows my mind. I don't know. And we got a 7th rounder in Woods. Like, that's crazy.
Exactly. And they let Odell walk. Odell didn't want to sign whatever. But, I mean, now they went from Odell, Woods, and Kupp to Kupp, aging Allen Robinson, and Cooper Kupp Jr., and that other receiver they've got.
Yeah. But, I think we've talked a little bit, good amount about Odell. Mm-hmm. We kind of have our, differences, but also our similarities about the conversation. Let's get a little bit into the Titans matchup this week. It's a divisional game. You can say it's a rivalry game. Some people don't see it as that. I do. It's the little brother, basically, of the AFC. What are your initial thoughts? We went up against the Colts in Indianapolis, and we kind of got them as a little bit depleted.
Right.
What would you say? They were a little depleted at the time?
A little bit. And they're even probably a little bit more depleted now. I mean, that was Jonathan Taylor. He got hurt in that game, and now he's been out the past 2 games. Nyheim Hines has now been out. I mean, if they're both out this week.
And their 3rd string is out as well.
Wow. So it will be Matt Ryan just throwing probably. I mean, he threw for 58 times last week. Like, which you look at the Colts franchise, that's a Colts franchise record, which is insane considering the 2 QBs before him.
Yeah.
Manning and Luck. Like, they only ran for 40 yards last week. They just said, you know what? We don't have the assets. We're just going to throw to Pittman. We're going to throw to Pierce, who has been really, really good for them.
Yeah.
I think that isn't good for us just because of the secondary issues and the pass rush issues. If they're just going to be like, all right, we're just going to throw it. Well, that is one of our weaknesses right now. And hopefully Hooker is able to come back this week. Vrabel sounded optimistic. Dupree might come back this week. That's, that would be another big piece, but keep an eye on the status of Taylor in particular, because if he doesn't go, then you kind of know they're just going to feed Pittman, feed Pierce, feed their tight ends, and they're just going to throw it.
Yeah, I agree. And, you look at Jelani Woods. I believe that's his name.
I loved him coming into the draft, man. I loved him. Big
fan of his. And, he's starting to catch his footing a little bit with this offense in Indianapolis. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like you're saying, the big noise about the Titans secondary, I wouldn't be surprised to see Matt Ryan do a couple checkdowns to him, like right up the middle. Like, that's something you got to worry about, because if you think about it, Mo Alley Cox always has a big game versus the Titans.
Always. That'll be a little bet this week. It's just Mo Alley Cox score a touchdown, because it seems to always happen.
Yeah, it'll be around probably plus 240, because that's always the line for tight ends in the 240, 270 range.
Right.
Hey, if you get him at plus 300 something, like, hey, that's a bargain.
Right.
It's worth a little $5 drop.
No kidding.
Yeah. But, so going into this game, a little worries about the secondary for the Titans. Offensively, worrying about the wide receiver depth. Are we just going to see Derrick Henry take over again?
I think that's got to be the game plan. And I'm a little concerned just because of how the second half in Indianapolis went. Like, this will be the first time we played a team twice this year. Will the Colts have the adjustments that they had in the second half last game, and will they shut the Titans down? Who knows? We'll find out how down in the offense will be able to handle playing an opponent twice. I know last week against Jacksonville, they were not able to stop the run at all. They gave up 243 rushing yards, and that's a big, giant, screaming sign to just feed Henry, which ever since the Buffalo game, he seems to be getting back into his old form. He's taking on runs a little bit harder. He's making more elusive moves. He seems to be, back to his full health. It'll be interesting. Buckner's back in there, Grover Stewart, like that D line for Indy is going to be, ready to play. I don't know if Shaq Leonard's playing or not, but again, if he does, that's another, issue to have to deal with. I think you just have to run the ball and utilize on third down, utilize the Kyle Phillips, utilize Chig, get him developed more into the game plan. And just, protect Tannehill is another huge.
I feel like this is the week where we're going to see this offensive line really make a statement if they're going to go be there for the long haul for the offense.
Because there have been talks. There have been talks left tackle. Could they shake it up there? Really hoping Nate Davis is healthy enough to get back this week, because you could see against Washington that was an issue. I mean, Montez Sweat was a man amongst boys.
Yeah. Montez Sweat is a Mississippi State alum. I'd say I'm a Mississippi State fan. I had a relative go there. So I was very familiar with the Montez Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons combo a few years back, and they were a menace to the game of football.
I remember when they played Bama with Tua there, they feasted on Tua.
Exactly. So, hopefully this O-line can stay healthy. Just have the team stay healthy in general. I feel like this early bye week, I'm not really a big fan of it. Unfortunate luck for the Titans. Normally they get around week 11, week 12. But it's
a blessing and a curse, just because we were so depleted that we needed a week to get some guys just relax, don't worry about ball, just go to the facility and get healthy. But at the same time now, when December comes around and you got that short week in between for the Cowboys game, and how much more dinged up are they going to be?
Yeah, that's very true. And, looking at the Cowboys, this is just a very hypothetical. Maybe Dak gets hurt again. Maybe they have an issue there. Maybe the wide receiving core is depleted at some point. I don't know. Maybe this is a make or break game for the Titans personally.
100%, because after this, you still got Houston. Houston on paper seems like a game that'll be, close, but it's compared to the beginning of the year, seems like a winnable game. And then after that, you kind of get into the meat and potatoes, where it's Cincinnati and Green Bay and Denver, which all still on paper seem like
possible winnable games.
The schedule doesn't seem as tough as it did on paper in September.
Right.
There are a lot of teams that are having issues. I mean, Brady said it a couple weeks ago, like a bunch of not so great teams this year. You've got your Bills, you got the Eagles, and then the Chiefs. After that, there's kind of a drop.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. You see a lot of 2-3 teams, a lot of 3-2 teams. I mean, hell, look at Denver. They're 3-3, right?
Crazy 3-3.
Yeah. So then you also have the Chargers, who won on Monday night, which was 3-3. So it's just, there's a big drop off. You're totally right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody, I think it's the AFC North, where it's the same thing. Baltimore's 3-3, Cincinnati's 3-3, Cleveland's like 2-4, Pittsburgh's got 3 wins. Like, it's all just a cluster of mediocrity right now.
Yeah, nobody can seem to stay healthy at the start of the season. It's just very up and down. But looking at the perspective of it all, if I take a step back, the Titans have, like you're saying, on paper, looks pretty good now. I'm not as worried about Denver. I'm not as worried about, I don't want to say the Texans, but I'm not as worried about it right now. The games I'm kind of worried about are Jacksonville, because they're just on the up and up. They're starting to get their mojo. The chemistry's different.
Even in that game against Indy, they're still, offense is still going. They're figuring things out.
Yeah, at the start of the game, the line closed at +1.5 for the Jags. I'm like, so the Jags are kind of back a little bit.
Yeah.
They're kind of showing some 2011, 2012 form when they were kind of had the Titans number.
Right. And I mean, they're struggling in the win column right now, but they're being competitive. And for that team, that's a big, considering the debacle that was Urban Meyer, that's a big first step. And they've got a quality coach now. Like, Doug Peterson's going to keep them in it for years to come. I
agree 100%.
As far as the Titans, I actually, watching that Tampa Bay Pittsburgh game last week, I was thinking, Vrabel and Tomlin are the same, where, they might not have the most talented roster. They may not, but he's got them ready to play, ready to run through a brick wall every week. And next thing you know, they're beating a team that they maybe should not have beaten, or people have counted them out, and they're beating Tom Brady. It's just one of those where it was funny on the last podcast, we questioned Vrabel and, sure, are we panicking too soon? And the answer was, we were panicking too soon, because
100%.
it doesn't matter who he's got out there. He's going to have his boys motivated to play. It may not be the prettiest, but those boys are going to be scrappy, ready to fight, ready to tough it out. And so far, they've been winning.
Yeah. And hey, to clarify, that little hot seat that we had for the NFP last time we were on the pod, we both agreed on the podcast that we were full-fledged for Vrabel. Just putting that out there.
It was also heat of the moment right after a 41-7 loss to Buffalo.
Exactly. And a lot of people, they have their moments. And so I'm not too worried about it.
It was also after what we thought was a terrible loss to the Giants, the 5-1 New York Giants.
That's another curveball that just doesn't make sense right now.
Right. How they're winning it, but they're doing it the same way. They're scrappy. They're, it's not the prettiest, but they're getting the job done, and they're winning games with Daniel Jones and a bunch of receivers they got at Walmart, and they're getting it done.
You want to start there? You want to start the NFL?
Yeah, absolutely. We can totally.
Give me your 4 picks, man. Let's hear them.
Let's see. We got, first off, Monday Night Football. I believe on podcasts before you have talked about this player when he was in college, how much you loved him. And I'm starting to fall in love with him too. The Bailey Zappi-led New England Patriots.
Indeed.
They're at home on Monday night playing Chicago. I may take money line here or maybe alter the spread a little bit because it's New England 7.5, but New England just sneaky. They do this every year where they start out, with questions about their OC and Mac Jones, and this team has fallen off and Belichick's washed. And then you get into October and they've won 3 straight and they're figuring things out. And Bailey Zappi's playing pretty damn good football.
Yeah. I'm going to say this before you get the rest of your picks. I'm not going to say I told y'all so, but
let them know. Let them know.
I'm just going to say this. I was a part of a college football show back in college called Blue Raider Extra Point. And if you rewatch those on YouTube, every time we got to the pick segment, I was all on Western Kentucky every week, week in and week out. I kept saying this kid from Houston Baptist, Bailey Zappi, is going to be something in the NFL.
You're a rider, man. You've been riding since day one.
I was riding since he transferred to a D1 college with Western Kentucky. So, and I'm an MTSU alum. That says something.
Right.
100 miles of hate. I mean, there's not a lot of hate towards Bailey Zappi. I went to this kid's pro day and damn, he just was spot on. Like he had 1 or 2 underthrown passes. I thought he was something. I'm not no pro scout. I'm not no nothing, but I like the kid. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. And there's another thing is that I made a preseason prediction on this podcast. It was like right before the season started. I said Bailey Zappi was going to take over in week 4, the starting job. Now, I didn't say Mac Jones was going to get hurt or Brian Hoyer wasn't going to get the job, but I remember this, and it was on the podcast. I said Bailey Zappi was going to take over in week 4 to get the starting job. And
look at that.
And look at that. Now, I also did say that Mac Jones was going to get traded. Now, I don't know about that one.
Hey, now, who knows?
You never know.
He keeps winning. Who knows? But they also they have really beaten on some bad teams. They shut out Detroit a couple weeks ago. They took care of Cleveland. They're figuring out, again, it's one of those teams that it's not pretty, but, they're feeding Ramondre Stevenson. The defense is playing well. That Chicago-Washington.
Almost beat Green Bay.
Almost beat Green Bay. They're playing Chicago. Chicago is, they lost an ugly game on Thursday night, and it's still been the talk all season that they're not able to move the ball at all. I don't think that changes against the Patriots. So I'll probably maybe alter the spread a little bit to New England 6.5. I like under a touchdown, but I like the Patriots against Chicago on Monday night. This other one is strictly just going with the stats right now. I took them a couple weeks ago and they won. Atlanta is 6-point dogs on the road at Cincinnati. Atlanta against the spread this year is 6-0.
You are correct. Yes, indeed.
So that's just one of those, you ride it till it dies. And it's been really fascinating because normally when a team goes 6-0 against the spread, they're blowing teams out. I heard on I think it was Twitter, where it's just like it was the 2007 Patriots and like the 2015 Broncos, or like there's those teams where they just blew people out of the water. Atlanta's won some games, they lost some games. They're 3-3, but good teams win, great teams cover.
Exactly. And there's a stat I saw earlier today. Teams that are favored at the spread are 38-55. So keep that noted. So the favorite teams on the money line that either win by a small margin that don't cover the spread are 38-55.
Wow. I looked at FanDuel this morning and just scrolling through, trying to figure out what to do. The talk of the NFL right now, when it's not the Dallas Cowboys, because I feel like it's always the Dallas Cowboys, is the state of New York.
Okay.
Obviously, Buffalo's doing their thing, but more importantly, the Giants and the Jets have like kind of turned around their team a little bit, and they're just playing fun football. And New York football is kind of back right now. I looked at the spreads this morning. The Giants are playing the Jaguars.
Okay.
They're 3-point dogs, which is very interesting. And then I proceed to look that the Jets are playing the Broncos, which we've already talked about how the Broncos are this year. They're also 3-point dogs.
Yeah.
Which just very, very – am I missing something here? Like,
I think in regards to the Jets and Broncos matchup, it's in Denver. So Denver's going to catch the points.
Right.
Now, in regards to the Jets defense, Sauce Gardner has been lights out.
Done.
I mean, it's kind of hard to really get a good perspective look on Sauce Gardner against the previous matchup versus Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay didn't have much assets to really throw to, and the fact that Quentin Williams was getting back there to Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, I could see why it's at 2.5, and I could see how the Jets could win outright because Breece Hall is starting to catch form. Zach Wilson's getting a little comfortable in the pocket.
They had to do it last week. They didn't even have to throw the ball at all. Like, it was all pressure off of Zach Wilson. It's run the ball, play good defense.
Yeah, and like
in these baby Jets.
I know, dude. The baby Jets, man. That's a good nickname. We'll roll with that. Baby Jets.
That's what Sauce Gardner. That's what Saleh calls them. Is they're the baby Jets.
Really? That is awesome. Hell yeah. Well, to answer your question, like I love the New York like parlay ride. I'm not saying it's a parlay, but I
was thinking Big Apple parlay. Just go with it. Giants have they've proved everybody wrong the first 6 games of the season. Ride with them. We've talked about Jacksonville, but it's still one of those where you could see them slipping up. You could, even if it's in Jacksonville, their crowd's known for, when a team like that comes into town, the opposing fans take over. Like,
yeah, I'm going to interject with you real quick. Something that I saw that I've really picked up on, all these like North teams that play in cold weather, like Minnesota, they were in Miami last week. Now, granted, like, yeah, you got Tua, who's out with the little head thing, came back this week. It's just something about these northern teams that have really good talent. You don't have to worry about them like pulling a hammy or something in this cold weather. You got Saquon, who's already on track to be comeback player of the year.
Right.
He's been in wildcat formation. He's been in
all over
formation, all over the place, in the slot, everywhere. And Danny Dimes, dude, he's playing some football. I mean,
he is.
One of my good buddies, Brian, who's been on the podcast, he keeps telling me, why is Danny Dimes so good? I'm like, he's not asking me this. He's saying it. He's saying that Danny Dimes is good. He's saying that the Giants are legit. I'm just like, dude, like I'm not bought and sold, but kind of starting to get bought and sold.
They just keep like you. I'm the same way. You keep thinking, no, they can't keep it up. They can't keep it up. And then they beat the Packers in London, which no one thought they would do. They go this week and beat Baltimore. Like they're just finding ways to win.
I'm right there with you, Zach. Let's do it. The Big Apple parlay. Let's roll it. We're taking money line of the spread.
I'll take money line.
On both?
I'll take money line on both. Let's go all in.
Okay. Jets and Giants money line.
You look at the other side with like, I don't trust Denver. There's a lot going on, a lot of drama in Denver. Melvin Gordon after last game is not pleased. Jerry Jeudy is not pleased. They had the incident with Hamler at the end of the Colts game. Like,
a lot of mouths to feed.
Ton of mouths to feed.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Melvin Gordon on the trade block. I'm being very honest with you. Would not be surprised.
No, I wouldn't either.
Because apparently Latavius Murray said, I came from the Saints. Let me just go and take over the starting spot.
It's amazing. He had like 3 carries in the first quarter, and then he was gone. And for a guy that – how can he split carries with Javonte Williams but can't split carries with Latavius Murray?
That's something – he even said it in his little post-game press conference, I guess you could say. He was interviewed by NFL Network. He was like, I'm clueless. I'm as clueless as y'all. So, like, that's come to the point where, like, I think it's time for him to move on elsewhere.
There's a lot of players saying that with what's going on right now.
Like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because apparently this is my little projection. Cam Akers is looking for a new home. Melvin Gordon, from what it seems like, is looking for a new home. I know the Rams have Darrell Henderson. He's like their lead bell cow.
Right.
But
he's also injury prone. And
exactly.
One run away from.
Exactly. I wouldn't be surprised if Melvin Gordon goes to the Rams. I know that sounds pretty crazy and hypothetical, but wouldn't be surprised. And I wouldn't be surprised if Cam Akers went to either Denver or, some other running back team that needs him real bad, that extra side third down type running back. I don't know.
Right. I mean, depending on the injuries, because the Colts make a move, that's one of those things. You never know.
Questions are up in the air, but dude, I love the picks. You got Atlanta 6.5 on the spread, 6-0 on the spread this year.
6.5. I like that. It was at 6 this morning.
Yeah, it's at 6.5 now. Then you got the Jets and the Giants, money lines on both of those. Mm-hmm. That's cheddar. I like the Big Apple parlay. And then you got the New England Patriots on Monday night at an alternate spread. You haven't specified.
I'll go 6.5.
You're going to go 6.5? You're going to touchdown spread?
Yeah, touchdown spread.
Okay. All right. 6.5. I got you down for that. Cool deal.
Right. And I got one more, just miscellaneous, just stats you see on Twitter, and you're like, you know what? Yeah, it checks out, and hopefully it doesn't come to bite me. Whatever Titans first half money line spread, whatever that is, hammer it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Just because you look at it, they come out, they're ready to play. Downing's done good with, having a good script for the boys. Second half's a whole different story, but the first half has always seemed to go as well as it could. Mm-hmm. Vrabel off a bye week has done really well. And you also look, a stat nugget I saw is that all 6 games this year for the Colts, they have been trailing at the half.
Interesting.
All 6 games.
That's a good nugget to know.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I will take Titans. I don't know if they do a money line for the first half, but
minus 146.
I would go with hammer that.
Yeah, and all right, I have to bring this up because you just said Titans first half money line. It brought up just a whole topic I was going to cover earlier in the podcast. We didn't get to it. Let's just talk about it right now. Right. Titans have not scored in the fourth quarter all season. All season. Second half, they're a completely different team. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on it, man? I really have to know. I'm
really hoping that this bye week was a coming to Jesus moment and they were able to figure some things out because, again, it's not sustainable. No. They've been very, very lucky, and they've been flirting with disaster. The Raiders game proved that. The Colts game proved that. I hate to say they semi-figured it out against Washington. They got one deep play that helped set up a touchdown.
Right.
It still didn't necessarily get figured out. They were a yard away from that game going haywire. They have to reevaluate themselves. That's what the bye week is you look in the mirror and you figure things out. They're just going to have to – I don't know if it's come up with a completely different game plan in the second half. You got to work on the adjustments, and that's not all Downing either. It's the other position coaches, but, he's the head of the table.
Yep.
But everybody as a unit just has to be better at adjusting to what the defense is giving you. Or is it a lack of adjusting? Because do they just because of how great the first halves are going, are they like, okay, we're good, and then don't adjust when the opposition does?
Interesting. Yeah. It's a lot of valid points you make there, Zach. A lot of valid points that I feel like we hope have been addressed this.
That's what it's supposed to. Part of the bye week.
Part of the bye week. It's supposed to be involved there, but we'll see. But yeah, that's our little nugget about that. I had to ask you about it because that was just it was in the back of the brain here. I just couldn't get it to the front. And thank you for rekindling that thought. But yeah, I like your picks. I really like the Titans first half money line. I might steal that one from you later in the week. Here are my picks. This is what I've thought about this a lot, and I'm just thinking in my head, it's the Thursday night game. It's finally something we might be able to
enjoy.
Yeah, might be able to enjoy, not have to have the Denver Broncos on primetime for like the third straight week already. Like this is, and the sad thing is they have 2 more primetime games.
I believe they're the Christmas game. I believe Christmas is Rams and Broncos, which
is it?
I believe so.
Oh, that's 3 primetime games. I was counting the Sunday night game with Kansas City. And then
I'm fairly certain the Christmas lineup includes Rams-Broncos, which, what do we do to deserve that?
This is like the worst year I think we could ever have in primetime football schedule.
I'm about to look at what the primetime schedule is because yikes. Even this game on Thursday isn't like the greatest game with Andy Dalton versus injured Kyler Murray. And
it's just the skill position matchups are just enticing. That's kind of what's making me want to watch,
I agree with that.
And especially with Chris Olave coming off concussion protocol, the new protocol rules into play.
Oh, buddy, you're going to love the Sunday night game this week.
Oh, God.
Steelers at Dolphins.
What? Dude.
And then Bears-Patriots Monday night. We get the Bears back-to-back week primetime games.
I truthfully, I hope NFL is doing this on purpose. So the second half of the season is just lights out, primetime football, what we all want to see.
The next week it gets better, so that's at least a stretch. The Thursday night game is Ravens-Bucks the next week.
Okay.
Better game. The Sunday night game is Packers-Bills.
All right. That's, yeah.
Halloween, Halloween is Bengals at Browns.
That's not a bad game. Honestly, that's not a bad game.
No, not at all. Cleveland will be rowdy for that.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a little bit of goodness on the horizon.
I just wish they would flex games a little bit more. And
yeah,
I know it can be hard with, fans traveling and whatnot, but, flex. I heard potential rumor that they were trying to flex out the Titans-Chiefs game for Jets-Bills.
Really?
Sunday night game, which I was like, we haven't been great. We haven't been that bad to get flexed out yet.
Yeah, come on, let's take a deep breath here.
Right. But it's also, the national media and the Jets and the Bills. So who knows?
All big markets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, as for this week, though, looking at this Thursday night game, I'm leaning towards the Saints money line. I don't know why. I know they're on the road. They're catching +1.5. This is something I've looked at. I mean, it could be more the fact of a player prop game, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm really going to take a money line there, but I dabbled the thought of taking the Saints money line possibly. But now that I think about it, I'm going to hold off. The main game I'm worried about, this is just a tight week of games, personally. Detroit's coming off a bye against Dallas.
Right.
Dallas is Dak going to play this week? Is he not?
Right.
But I think what I'm going to do, and I feel pretty safe about this, this is a revenge game and a statement game for the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to take the Packers on the spread at -5.5. This is a line that I've been kind of teetering with. The fact that Randall Cobb is officially out for 2 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain, it really makes me think that, Romeo Dobbs is going to be the number one in this lineup. It's either him or Alan Lazard. They got to start feeding the ball to Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones has kind of been a little obsolete recently. A.J. Dillon has just kind of been getting some bulk of the yards with running it up the middle just to wear down the defense. But I want to see the Aaron Jones of last year where they opened up the offense and he was a pass catcher. I want to see that Aaron Jones. Because if
someone that had him on a fantasy team, I want to see that too.
Exactly. I have him in 2 leagues. I want to see Aaron Jones ball out. And that's what fantasy football is missing. That's what regular football is missing. That's what Packers fans are missing. They're missing the dual threat Aaron Jones from last year. And even Aaron Rodgers has said it in previous post-game interviews. We need to get 33 the ball more. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that, Aaron. If you want to say that, let's do it.
Right.
But that's my first pick. Second pick, I want to do it, but I can't. Tampa just doesn't prove it yet. They've been 10.5 favorites 2 weeks in a row. Haven't covered. So I'm going to stay away from it. This right here, I think, is a steal. You could take it at spread or money line. The Chiefs at -3. I know it's a hard 3, but this is a statement game for the Chiefs at -3. I feel like they were disrespected at home versus the Bills. This is where Patrick Mahomes says, hey, let me just let the gun loose and just sling it deep. So we'll see a field day from that game. Next game, I thought about Steelers and Dolphins, but you told me, it's just, what is there to enjoy about it,
I mean, Tua will be back, so it may be more of a, Dolphins, maybe.
Maybe.
We don't know. Kenny Pickett, it sounds like he's still in concussion protocol, so it'd be the Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
And maybe the Dolphins, just because, Steelers defense is banged up. Waddle and Hill.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll stay away from it, but you know what I'll do? I'll do this. I'll ride your Big Apple parlay with you.
Right.
And then I hate to just steal picks from you, but dude, the Atlanta Falcons pick, I don't want to fade you, nor do I want to steal your pick. It's just the fact that I just have a sick feeling the Bengals are about to just launch it to Jamar Chase multiple times this game. Possibly 2 TD type game from Jamar.
AJ Terrell, though, on Jamar, it's a fun matchup.
See, I don't have my picks ready, but I've just been so indecisive lately. Let's do this. We'll run it. Giants money line. I'm doing it, man. Giants money line. And we will go Jets money line.
I think too, you should really look at that Saints Cardinals is looking at least first half, just because the Cardinals have been horrendous in the first half.
Yeah, I saw that stat on covers. I was thinking about the first half money line or spread.
Right, because even so, Hopkins is back for Arizona. They just lost Hollywood Brown for 6 weeks. I don't know. I think Olave's playing for the Saints now. He'll at least be coming back.
The first half spread is +0.5. And it's -120. Let's just do this. Saints first half money line.
Yeah, right. First half money line parlays this week.
Yeah, let's run some first half money lines because apparently full game is just not cashing for us regardless. I don't know why. But yeah, we'll roll with that. Packers -5.5, Chiefs -3, Giants money line, Jets money line, and Saints first half money line. That right there is your NFL parlay week 7 of the week. I guess is the best way to put it. Yeah, it's your NFL week 7 parlay of the week.
Perfect.
All right. Now on to college football. We got to get this one wrapped up here because, college football this week, it's kind of, I want to say a little bit slim pickings. Would you agree to that?
Well, yeah. And I mean, also after last week, it kind of goes back to earth a little bit. Still some good games, but it's not the slate that, I mean, last week was one of the best slates we've had in a long time.
I agree.
So now back to earth a little bit. And I mean, there's a couple games here, but like you said, slim pickings for sure.
Yeah. You know what? I'll go first just to get it out of the way because I've been so indecisive and I feel like you're ready. Let's just go with this. We'll go with the first game. Man, you know what? I take it back. You go. I'm totally in a disarray right now.
You're good. You're good. I'll start with, Bama's going to be hosting Mississippi State this week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily touching the spread just because when he gets over, I think it's 21, and that's a lot both ways. And probably more about Mississippi State than I do, but they just seem like one week they're
up and down.
Offense is clicking, offense all over the place, and the next week it gets like last week it sputtered a little bit. I think the way Alabama's defense has been an issue for majority of the season. I'm looking at the over 61.
Yeah, I like that.
I think Alabama's offense with Bryce back in will continue to click, but I also think Rodgers is going to put up some points for the Bulldogs. So I like Alabama, Mississippi State, the over 61.
Okay.
I also like the CBS game this week. Ole Miss is riding high. They're 7-0, but they're going to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
And LSU looked pretty good last week in their win against Florida. I'm not necessarily sold on the Ole Miss resume.
Okay.
Their best win is a game they probably should have lost against Kentucky. After that, their best win's Auburn, I would say, or Georgia Tech. It's just not – Lane's getting it done, but the schedule's been favorable to say the least. And this is their first real road test of the season. It started out with Ole Miss being 3.5-point favorites. The line's already shifted to LSU's now 1.5-point favorite. I'm going to take the Tigers on the Bayou.
Okay. At the spread or money line?
Whatever odds are better. I mean, LSU's 1.5, so I mean, I kind of like them in that spot.
Okay.
And then the one that we debated a little bit, Clemson against Syracuse. I'm just sticking with the big guns here. I trust Clemson more than I trust Syracuse. I'm gonna take them at -13.5.
Okay, Clemson -13.5. Yeah, I have a good buddy of mine who actually went to Clemson, and he has been giving me like the biggest crapshoot of it all. Just saying, dude, what are you like? Why are you so invested with Syracuse? I'm like, I get it. He was saying, well, they haven't beaten anybody. I'm like, man, and you kind of alluded to it earlier in the podcast about Clemson kind of taking it to, Wake Forest. It was a tight game and a tight game versus Florida State. But if you really look at it, like Clemson, DJ was not DJ against Wake Forest. It was a very tight game through and through, went to overtime. I don't know, man. I just don't – I don't want to say I don't believe in Clemson because like you're saying, they get the job done. Kind of like the Titans. Not a pretty win, but they get the job done. I don't know. I'm still not sold on Dabo and the Tigers. But I'm riding the Qs, man. But you keep going. Those are your 3 picks there. Give me the rest of them.
Oh, that's all I got. Like I said, it was
okay.
That's all I got this week.
That's totally fine. Well, I guess I'll get into mine. I've already kind of teased at one of them, but I'll save that for the last. First pick, I like. I was contemplating taking like a first half money line or something along those lines, but I'm going to roll with Texas on the regular money line at -235. It's a juicy price, like very overpriced, you could definitely say, but I'm in a parlay. So -235 is good for me. That's Texas money line going up against Oklahoma State on the road. They're -6.5 on the road. Yeah, I know Oklahoma State lost last week to TCU. I probably should be taking the 6.5 spread plus for the home dogs. But I don't know. Some of this Texas team kind of something smells.
Something about them, man. They've been starting to figure it out with Ewers being back. Like, they're getting hot at the right time. And I think that they survived after the ass kicking they handed Oklahoma to come back and survive Iowa State, which could have been a letdown game. To be able to get through that and come out with a win, they're riding pretty high right now.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, man. I think the next pick I like would be Stanford at Stanford against Arizona State. Arizona State all season has been in shambles.
Right.
I know the former Florida quarterback is over at Arizona State, and he's just been kind of lighting it up a little bit. Definitely caused me to not win money against USC. The backdoor cover almost happened with the pick there, but yeah, I'm gonna roll with Stanford money line. They played pretty damn good football against Notre Dame last week.
They always do, man. They're just David Shaw quietly keeps them in contention.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a minus 156 money line. They're getting minus 2.5 at home. I'm on the fence about that. I'll just take it safe with the money line, minus 156. The next game I looked at, I teeter-tottered this idea of A&M, South Carolina getting plus 3.5 at home. Is that the right play? I don't know. But I'm just going to play it safe and take a different game. I've just kind of teased all the audience here. TCU money line, minus 164. That is a pretty good value going up against Kansas State at home. They're catching 3.5 points there, not a field goal, a little bit, field goal and a half. Not a fan of it. So we'll roll with the next one here. Last one I have. Yeah, this is weird. I was going to take Alabama, Mississippi State and get Mississippi State at plus 21, but I'm not going to do it. I am sticking to my guns. The pick of the week, Nick's NFP hot pick of the week. The hot sign is on. Give it to me. Syracuse, the Big Orange. Give me plus 13.5, please. I want the Qs at plus 13.5. This is a ridiculous number to get it at that margin. I do believe this game is in Death Valley, but I don't care. Is it a night
game in Death Valley, or is it just?
I think it's a noon.
Does it matter?
Does it even matter at this point? I don't think so. Let me look this one up real quick. Clemson going up against Syracuse. It is an 11 a.m. game.
Oh man, dang.
Yeah, baby.
I'm
all about it. I'm confident now.
I'm holding my ground, but
I am confident now.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. Hey, the NFP hot pick of the week for Nick is the Syracuse Big Orange, plus 13.5 in Death Valley against the Clemson Tigers. Dude, I'm salivating. Former Mississippi State quarterback Garrett Schrader has been shredding defenses with the pass game for Syracuse. It's unbelievable what he's been doing. Yeah, I get it. You can say I haven't played anybody, but you know what? This is a statement game for Syracuse. I think they get it done outright. If you want to take a money line, it's plus 400. That's ridiculous.
Touching that? You touching that, Nick?
I'm all over it. I'm taking the spread. I'm dabbling a little on the money line. This is awesome. Now, if you do want to take the over at 49.5, you could do that as well. I think this will be a shootout. I really do think so. Yeah, I think it's going to be a shootout. Probably like around the 56 total overall type range. Right now it's at 49.5, so I wouldn't be surprised if it gets to 56, 57. Not saying as the stopping line, but I'm saying initially in the game it could be like
right.
That. But yeah, that is my hot pick of the week. Am I missing anything before we go?
I don't think so. I mean, again, there's that big game in the Pac-12, but it's just, it's probably not our neck of the woods to comment on it.
Yes. You know what? I'm going to add this one to the parlay before we go. UCLA is getting 6.5 on the road. I'm taking it. UCLA plus 6.5. I think this is a revenge game for Chip Kelly. I'm all on it too. So, yeah.
I like it.
So, for the Nick Frazier podcast, NFP, college football week 8 parlay this week, we have UCLA plus 6.5, Texas money line, Stanford money line, TCU money line, and the NFP hot pick of the week, Syracuse Big Orange plus 13.5 in Death Valley.
Fighting Keith Bullocks, baby.
There you go, the Fighting Keith Bullocks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Nick Frazier podcast. As always, thank you to Zach Crutcher for coming on as the NFP guest of the week. And some exciting news, Zach, for all the listeners as well. The Nick Frazier podcast is officially on Amazon music platform or podcast, and also is on iHeartRadio.
There you go.
So the Nick Frazier podcast is going up in the world. It is on the iHeartRadio streaming platform along with Amazon Music. So now the Nick Frazier podcast can be listened to on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcast, Amazon Music Podcast, and iHeartRadio Podcast. So you can listen on all those platforms. Greatly appreciate all that support the podcast. And if you want to know more about the Nick Frazier podcast in between episodes, you know where to go. Go to the Nick Frazier podcast Instagram page. That's where I put all my picks, all the exclusive info of the podcast, and you can catch out some of Zach's information there as well. He's followed on the NFP. His stuff's posted on there as well. Go give him a follow. It'll be linked in the bio. Greatly appreciate everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.